You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight we'll talk obviously about President Andrzej Duda's visit in the White House and in the United States, that there is many dimensions to this visit, and military dimension is observed very closely by Chris Zawitkowski of Polonia Institute, who is our guest. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good morning. I welcome everybody, all your viewers. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Let us start with this military dimension of Polish-American cooperation. Is it very much one-sided? Poland is the smallest client who is receiving the security from the America, or this is exaggeration?
No, definitely not. I would say this way. I think it's almost 25 years, maybe even a little more than since the Cato Institution and Heritage Foundation were promoting the idea that U.S. foreign policy regarding national security issues in Europe should be based on three pillars of the system, and they said this policy has to be based on support both ways to and from United Kingdom, Poland, and Israel. And this is what the Cato Institution, as I said, and Heritage Foundation were promoting for years. Then in 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, we were approached by the White House, then under President Obama, who was disencouraged by Russian Federation policies and acknowledgements and assurances given by President Putin and Medvedev. He called Putin even thug, which was very awkward. This was published in the Atlantic magazine. And he approached us if we Polish Americans could use as a leverage our good relationship with the Polish government. At the time, there was nothing serious undertaken by Polish government. There was only vague mentioning of the problem by President Komorowski, who in September said that, well, we have to talk to our partners in the alliance, in NATO alliance, and discuss with them the issues, because this looks very bad in light of the Welsh conference. And we responded to the White House that Polish Americans can issue an appeal to the President Obama, and Polish American Congress on annual meeting in Chicago issued a very strong statement, an appeal to President Obama to establish good bilateral relationship between Poland and the United States and Poland, as a matter of fact. And this should include the presence of the American armed forces on Polish territory. And since then, American troops started arriving to Poland for military training. And we saw the American Airborne Division, we saw some other units coming to train together with Polish military since then. So this was initiative from the American side, and nothing really serious was said by any response practically from Polish side at the time, until the situation changed due to the elections in 2015, when Macierewicz became the Minister of National Defense. He, as a very well known among the American politicians, he visited the United States many times, and he was advocating for American presence. Polish Americans also contributed quite a bit during the time of the of the Warsaw NATO summit. We organized the rallies in front of the White House and some other places to sustain American approach towards Poland and establishment of military presence in Poland. And this was continued. And I personally, I'm assured by contacting U.S. commanders and military people and even politicians as well, that America wants Poland to be strong. I could quote what General Breedlove, former commander of U.S. forces in Europe and former commander of NATO forces in Europe. He said during Warsaw NATO summit on the conference for military people, he said Polish armed forces are not suitable opponent for Russia, but can be a barrier to die. And this is very important. We have to remember that the United States military men, they swear to defend the country and defend the Constitution for any price. So Americans know that in order to secure American interests in Europe, which are very, very big. You know, one should remember that U.S. invested a lot of money in Europe. But I want to concentrate on military issues. They know very well that if Poland defends it defends itself, then it would defend the rest of Europe too. And this would be the end of the Putin's dream to create big community, I'm quoting him, from Vladivostok to Gibraltar.
You mentioned very interesting and crucial issues, because when we speak about military development, military investment, the first things that come to mind is money, great interest, zones of influence, and so on. But it all boils down to the issue of boys taken from Kentucky, Alabama, Louisiana, I don't know, Arizona, from lower end of American society, who serve their country in the military, who will eventually come to Poland, and their life will be put in line of world peace. So what is the real argument to convince the parents and the boys and girls themselves to serve in Poland?
Americans are very practical men, and they know that their well-being and their good life depends very much on how the American interest is defended in the world. They know, they look at the map and they know that in case of any trouble in the Far East may result in Russians moving into the West. They know it. And they know also that many American companies, you mentioned Kentucky and you mentioned Oklahoma, you know. Remember, Sudenga is the company that produces agriculture equipment. And they are present in Poland. They are trying to sell in Poland. They also know that if they are not present in an international market, then they won't be present on their own too. So it's no longer splendid isolation that is determining the international policy, but also understanding that there is a need for something. And you know, it's really funny. I recently traveled through the United States, and I've been to Kentucky, and I've been to Texas and Missouri, and I visited Memphis, and I tell you that actually a lot of people were showing sympathy towards Poland. They were saying, "Oh, that's great," you know, Kościuszko town in the middle of the United States is celebrating and emphasizing the fact that their name comes from the Polish-American hero. So yes, there is a sympathy, And especially in light of trouble with the Latinos invading in masses United States, they say, one Oklahoma man told me, we were stupid when we were having problems with Poles immigrating to the United States after the war, and now we have much bigger problem with Latinos coming here.
So that's another dimension on this Polish-American festival that is going on these days. Mr. Chris Zawitkowski of Polonia Institute. Sir, thank you very much for this, unfortunately, too brief conversation.